The room glittered with candles and silver cutlery, all arranged for what should have been a celebration. A 42-year celebration, to be exact. Laughter ran through the restaurant like champagne being poured, but none of it touched me as I stood beside the table holding a small wrapped gift. I, Winona Graves, 68 years old, widow, grandmother, former elementary school teacher, had shown up the same way I always did. Present, kind, on time, but that night kindness met a wall I never expected. My granddaughter Lucy looked up at me with innocence sharpened into something cruel, something borrowed from another voice. "You can't sit with us. Mom said you are an old burden." Every fork paused. Glasses stilled mid-air. Then came the sound, a ripple of laughter beginning with the adults. Even my son Michael let out a short laugh, the kind people make when they think disrespect is adorable. Vanessa smirked into her wine like she had trained the moment herself. I stood there for maybe 3 seconds, but it felt like 3 years. My heart did not break loudly. It cracked in silence like thin porcelain. I placed my napkin neatly on the table, spine straight, voice steady. "Well then, I suppose I won't burden anyone with my presence any longer." Michael muttered something about me overreacting, but I was already walking away. The restaurant lights blurred as I left, dignity wrapped tight around pain no one cared to see. That night at home, a text arrived, short and cold. "Payment still due tomorrow?" Not an apology, not a question of how I was feeling, just a demand. I replied with 2 words. "Figure it out." Out. I turned off my phone, exhaled, and slept deeper than I had in months. It was the moment the old version of me died quietly. And the woman who would take her place began to rise. The next morning sunlight came through my curtains as if nothing had happened. The world kept spinning, coffee kept brewing, and yet something in me had changed shape overnight. I sat at the small oak table Frank and I had shared for decades, hands wrapped around a warm mug, stomach empty but no longer hungry for permission or acceptance. I thought back over the years that led me to that restaurant table. 3 years since I buried my husband. Frank had been steady, decent, the kind of man who fixed fences and believed every problem had a solution if you simply tried long enough. When he died, I feared loneliness would be my greatest battle. I was wrong. My battle was family that did not see me as family at all. Michael and Vanessa bought their dream house just months after the funeral. Too large, too expensive, too urgent. They asked for help with the mortgage, promised it was temporary. Just until work stabilized, just until they caught their breath. Temporary grew into 36 payments, tuition fees, sports uniforms, grocery deliveries when Vanessa said she was too tired to cook, a vacation fund for Lucy and Noah because I wanted their childhood to hold softness, not stress. And not once did they say thank you without expectation following behind it like a shadow. People imagine exploitation arrives with force or shouting. Sometimes it arrives with a gentle voice, a sweet smile, and the word mom spoken like it is currency instead of love. I gave freely. I allowed it. I excused it. Until a child at a restaurant taught me more truth in one sentence than any adult had bothered to give me in years. I was funding a lifestyle, not supporting a family. And I was done pretending otherwise. By 9 the next morning I had 17 missed calls, 8 from Michael, 5 from Vanessa, 4 unknown numbers I assumed were backup pressure. My phone vibrated like a guilty conscience, but for once, I did not answer. I spread butter on toast, fed the cat, watered my ferns. I treated peace like something sacred, not something purchased. At 9:22 a knock rattled the front door. The kind of knock that expects ownership, not permission. I opened it, and there stood Michael, 40 years old, shoulders broad, jaw tight, looking like a teenager caught breaking curfew. Except now he wanted money instead of forgiveness. "Mom, you forgot the transfer." "No," I said gently, "I didn't forget." His eyes flashed confusion, then annoyance, like my refusal was an inconvenience rather than a boundary. "We need it by 3, he insisted, stepping into my living room as if space still belonged to him. "Mortgage is due, you know the schedule." I sat down in my armchair, posture calm. This chair had held Frank through fevers and sermons and laughter. Now it held me steady. "Michael, I have made 28 mortgage payments for you. That is $50,000. I think you and Vanessa can handle the next one without me." His mouth opened, stunned. No apology, no realization, only panic. "We'll lose the house." I met his eyes without flinching. "Then you will learn how to save a house." Silence filled the room like fog. He waited for me to break, to fold. The old version of me would have, but this version had walked away from humiliation and slept soundly. I will not pay another dollar, I said. Not today. Not ever. His voice trembled with disbelief. You're serious? I nodded. I had never been more serious in my life. And just like that, the Bank of Winona closed. Michael stormed out without another word, leaving the door open behind him like a threat. But I simply finished my coffee, folded laundry, tended to the day the way women have always done even when the world around them shakes. By noon, my voicemail was full. Mom, please call back. We just need this month. Don't do this to us. Not one message said they were sorry. By the end of the week, the tone shifted. Desperation always changes its voice. A notice from the bank was taped to their door. Foreclosure proceedings initiated. I knew the numbers. Without my monthly transfer, they were 800 short. Not thousands, just 800. But entitlement blinds more effectively than poverty ever could. Vanessa appeared on my porch next, her mascara streaked, perfume sharp like she hoped scent could soften memory. Winona, please. Think of the children. Oh, I had thought of them. I had thought of their futures, their lessons, what they were being taught at home that disrespect had no consequence as long as money flowed behind it. I invited her inside, served her tea, listened to every plea, every excuse, every deflection. Victimhood rolled off her tongue like she had practiced. We never meant for Lucy to say that. Things got out of hand. Your family helps. I set my cup down and met her eyes with a steadiness that finally silenced her. Family respects. She blinked, searching for a foothold and finding none. So that's it? That's it. She left quietly, shoulders shaking, but not with remorse, only panic, and panic multiplied. Michael returned 3 more times. Lucy called under instruction. Noah left messages at bedtime, voice small, coached. Everything was collapsing exactly the way truth does when support beams are made of manipulation instead of love. And still I held the line. Because boundaries don't destroy families. They reveal them. The breaking point came on a gray Thursday morning, the kind where clouds hang low like they are listening. My neighbor called at sunrise. Winona, there's a moving truck in front of your son's house. I stood at the window and watched from across the street. Furniture, mattresses, boxes labeled kitchen, and toys were carried out one by one. Michael directed like a foreman. Vanessa paced with her phone pressed to her ear. 2 children sat on the front step clutching backpacks too small for the weight inside them. I waited for the knock I knew was coming. At 10:14 it arrived. Michael, voice bright with forced optimism, said, Mom, we are moving to Arizona. New start. New work. The market is better there. I nodded slowly. And the kids? Silence first. Then the lie wrapped in logic. It would be best if Lucy and Noah stayed with you, just until we settle, just until school term ends, just until responsibility was inconvenient. You already told them, didn't you? I asked. He looked away. That was answer enough. Lucy stared at my house across the street, eyes wet, hope flickering. Noah sat stiffly, jaw tight like he already knew this was abandonment disguised as practicality. No, I said finally. I will not take custody so you can escape the consequences you created. Vanessa arrived minutes later, mascara already smeared, pleading with breath that came in broken pieces. We don't have room. We don't have jobs. You can't let them go with us. Can't let them? Or won't take them? Her silence cracked louder than any shout. At noon I called Child Protective Services. 2 social workers arrived with calm hands and paperwork that did not tremble. Michael and Vanessa were given a choice. Take your children, or surrender them. They drove away that evening without looking back. The children left too, in a different car, headed to emergency foster care. Not because I failed them, but because their parents did. 3 days passed before I gathered enough breath to dial the number Seps left on my counter. Not because I doubted my choice, but because the weight of it was heavy the way truth often is. The Benson family agreed to let me visit that Saturday afternoon. Their home was modest, warm, lived in. A watercolor of sunflowers hung by the door, and something on the stove smelled like cinnamon and vanilla. It felt like the kind of house where laughter didn't need permission. Lucy saw me first. Grandma. She flew across the living room and wrapped herself around me with the fierceness of a child afraid someone might disappear. Noah approached slower, shoulders tense, but his eyes told the whole story. Are you here to take us home? He asked. Home. The word landed like a seed, small but alive. We sat together while the Bensons gave us space. Lucy spoke about pancakes on Saturdays, how Mrs. Benson taught her to crack eggs without shells. Noah mentioned homework help, how Mr. Benson never raised his voice, how nights were quiet now. No shouting, no slammed doors. He said it carefully, like truth was fragile. I felt something shift then, not pity, not guilt. Something deeper, the realization that these children had not just been neglected financially, they had been starved of stability, gentleness, safety. When it was time to leave, Noah walked me to the door. "Grandma," he said, voice steady, "if you try for custody, I want to live with you. I want a real home. Not a temporary fix. Not a second chance for their parents. A home built on respect, structure, love without price tags attached." I sat in my car with hands still trembling, and by the time I reached my driveway, the decision was made. Not out of obligation. Out of love that finally had clarity. The courthouse smelled faintly of paper and lemon polish. I arrived early, folder pressed to my chest, the same way I used to hold lesson plans. Inside it were letters from doctors confirming my health, bank statements showing stability, photos of the children smiling in my backyard during weekend visits. Evidence not of wealth but of safety. Michael and Vanessa did not attend. They were already in custody on charges tied to stolen equipment across state lines. Their absence did not soften anything. It only made the truth clearer. My attorney, Grace Holloway, stood beside me like steel disguised as silk. When the judge asked why I sought custody, I answered without rehearsed decoration. Because children deserve a home where they are wanted, not managed. Because love cannot grow where respect is missing. Lucy and Noah were brought into the room, both dressed neatly, hands clasped. Lucy looked nervous, eyes darting to me like I was a lifeline. Noah appeared older than his 13 years, jaw set with quiet conviction. The judge asked whether they wished to speak. Noah nodded. "Your Honor," he said, voice steady, "I love my parents, but I don't feel safe with them. They fight. They leave us out. They think money is more important than people. But with Grandma Winona we have rules. We have dinner, we sleep without worrying. I just want that to continue." Lucy stepped closer to the microphone. "She listens to us. She does yell, 'I want to live where I feel good inside.'" The courtroom stilled. Grace submitted reports from social workers, character statements from neighbors, a home inspection checklist with every box marked suitable. It felt less like a battle and more like truth quietly opening its hands. When the gavel finally struck wood, the ruling was clear. Full custody to Winona Graves. Not temporary. Permanent. I exhaled for the first time in months. The first night they moved in, the house felt different. Not louder, not chaotic. Just full, like air after rain. Noah chose the spare room with the window facing the maple tree. Lucy picked the one across the hall, and covered the walls with drawings before the suitcase was even fully unpacked. I cooked dinner slowly, hands remembering recipes I had not made since Frank passed. Roast chicken, mashed potatoes, green beans with butter and salt. Comfort food, the kind that warms rooms and hearts together. Lucy set the table with mismatched plates. Noah lit a candle like it was ceremony. Maybe it was. We sat down. 3 plates, 3 breaths, no demands, no tension. Just us. After dinner we drew up simple house rules. Bed by 9:30 on school nights. Homework before screens, respect spoken like habit, not exception. Noah agreed easily, almost gratefully. Lucy asked if she could help choose meals twice a week. I told her we would plan menace together every Sunday. Her face lit up like a switch flipped inside her. Later I tucked Lucy into bed. She held my hand like an anchor. "Grandma," she whispered, "if we live here forever, can I put my stuffed animals on the top shelf?" I smiled. Yes, forever means shelves too." Noah passed me in the hallway, tall, quiet, but shoulders no longer curled in defense. "Good night, Mom Winona," he said. Not Grandma. Not Winona. Mom Winona. The words did not break me. They mended something I thought was gone. I closed my bedroom door and stood for a long moment in the stillness. This house was no longer a place where I waited for calls that drained me. It was laughter, routine, Wednesday spelling tests, piano keys, cereal bowls stacked in the sink. Life, real life. My second chance at motherhood had begun. And this time I walked into it willingly. Peace lasted almost 2 months before the first letter came. Department of Corrections, printed in red across the envelope. My hands did not shake when I opened it. I had learned the difference between fear and preparation. Inside was Michael's handwriting, recognizable, slanted, familiar in the way storms are familiar after you have survived enough of them. Winona. You turned your back on us. You ruined our lives. A real mother would have stood by her son. Not one sentence asked if the children were well. Not one line acknowledged the damage he caused. He wrote as if loyalty was something owed, not earned. I placed the letter in a drawer without ceremony. Vanessa's letter arrived a week later, softer, sweeter, coated in apology like packaged candy. She spoke of forgiveness as if it were a door I had locked. She wrote that we could be a family again if I would stop poisoning the children against them. She asked for faith. She did not ask for responsibility. That one went into the drawer too. Grace Holloway read every word with clinical calm. When she finished, she looked at me the way surgeons do before operating. When they are released, they will come back, she said. Not for love. For access. We need to protect your home, your accounts, your peace, for your sake and for the children. So we filed limits. No unsupervised visitation. No sudden re-entry into our lives. No contact without court approval. It was not revenge. It was a fence placed around the garden I was finally learning to grow in peace. That night, Noah found me on the porch swing. He leaned his head on my shoulder without asking. We're okay now, he said quietly. We finally are. I closed my eyes and breathed in the truth of it. We were. We really were. It happened on a Tuesday morning just past spring, the kind of morning where the world seems honest. Birds loud, windows open, pancakes on the stove. Noah was packing his school bag. Lucy hummed while tying her shoes. Life had texture again. Then the doorbell rang. A man stood on the porch in a dark suit, badge clipped to his belt, expression firm but not unfriendly. He introduced himself as Agent Hollander from the Federal Crimes Division. I invited him in, offered coffee, because hospitality is habit even when your pulse shifts pace. He set a folder on my table, thick, heavy. Mrs. Graves, we need to talk about your son. He opened the file. Page after page of documents slid across the table like a truth no longer willing to be quiet. Not just stolen equipment, not just fencing machinery, not just one bad decision made in a moment of desperation. A network. Organized. Structured. 5 years deep. Bank accounts in other states, cryptocurrency wallets, offshore transfers under shell corporations. And then he turned a page that held my breath hostage. My name. My signature. My social security number. Forged, copied, used. Your son committed identity theft against you, Mrs. Graves. We believe he used your clean financial record to legitimize illegal transactions. I sat very still, not shocked, not broken, just painfully awake. How much? I asked. Agent Hollander exhaled. We estimate $1.6 million in hidden assets connected to transactions done under your identity. For a moment, every sound in the house went quiet. Then Lucy giggled from the hallway. Noah called, Mom, Winona, we're going to miss the bus. Normal life threaded through revelation like light through blinds. Agent Hollander folded his hands. You are legally entitled to restitution. All of it if you choose. $1.6 million. Money built on pain and stolen futures. A fortune. Or a responsibility. It depended entirely on what I did next. I did not answer immediately. No one should answer quickly when handed a number that large. I asked Agent Hollander for time and he agreed, leaving his card on the table beside the salt shaker. Once the door shut, I sat alone for a long while, sunlight moving slowly across the hardwood like an hour hand. $1.6 million. Enough to buy a bigger house. Enough to travel the world. Enough to erase every bill I would ever owe. But money gained through wounds is never clean. That night, I walked the garden Frank planted decades ago, roses, hydrangeas, peonies half awake from winter. I thought about all the mornings I wired money to Michael. I thought about how I believed it was helping, how it really fed a life I did not recognize, how many people had been hurt along the way. This was not inheritance. It was collateral damage. On the third day, I called Hollander back. I want restitution, I told him, but not for myself alone. Half must be returned to the victims he defrauded. quietly, directly, without headlines or ceremony. "And the rest?" he asked. "That half goes into a trust for Noah and Lucy. Their education, their future. A life not built from their parents' mistakes but lifted beyond them." There was a pause, then the kind of silence people make when they witness something they did not expect. Finally, Hollander spoke. "Mrs. Graves, most people would keep every dollar." "Most people," I replied, "have not buried a husband and raised 2 children twice." He nodded like the decision made sense in a world that rarely values sense over self-interest. When the paperwork was finalized months later, I received a check with more zeros than I ever dreamed of. I did not frame it. I did not toast it. I did not call anyone. I simply placed it into the trust and exhaled. The past would not be rewritten. But the future, oh, that could be. A year has passed since the day I closed the door on the life I used to know. The house looks different now. Not bigger, not fancier, just alive. There are shoes by the door that don't belong to me. A half-finished puzzle on the dining table. A calendar filled with school concerts, baseball games, dentist appointments, choir rehearsals. My life is full of everyday things I once thought I had lost forever. One evening, Noah stood in the doorway of the kitchen, now 16, taller than me, voice more steady than the boy I first welcomed home. "Mom Winona," he asked, "do you ever wish things happened another way?" I looked at him, at Lucy drawing at the counter with a pink marker on her cheek, at the quiet hum of a dishwasher, and the soft hum of safety. I thought about the pain that brought us here, the loss, the betrayal, the versions of love that looked like chains instead of arms. "Sometimes," I said, "but wishing backward never built anything forward." He nodded like he understood exactly. Lucy came to me later with a picture she drew, 3 figures holding hands under a sky full of stars. She pointed to the middle one. "That's you," she whispered. "You're the strong one. Not wealthy. Not perfect. Strong." I hung the drawing on the fridge and realized something simple but enormous. My revenge was never about destroying anyone. It was about refusing to be destroyed. It was about choosing peace over permission, boundaries over guilt, a future over a history that never learned to love me back. So if someone listening is where I once stood, exhausted from giving, hoping respect will appear if you just give more, hear me clearly. You are not obligated to shrink so others can grow. You are allowed to choose yourself. You are allowed to choose peace. Thank you for being here, for listening, for holding this story gently. Like, share, comment your thoughts below. And if you're new, subscribe for more stories of strength and second chances. Your voice matters. Your boundaries matter. And you deserve a life where love is not payment, but presence.